Keanu Reeves woke up to the soft sound of birds chirping outside his window. The sunlight filtered through the curtains in warm golden rays that made the wooden floor of his small cabin glow. He stretched his arms and yawned, feeling the crisp chill of early October air on his skin. The leaves outside were beginning to change color. Some were bright orange, others a deep red, and a few were still green. The way the wind rustled through the branches reminded him of whispers of old memories, quiet moments that brought both joy and reflection. For as long as he could remember, October had always been a special month. It was a time of change, a time when the world seemed to pause for a while and invite people to look inward. There was something magical about the month, something that made him feel connected to nature and to the people around him. He believed that October wasn't just a month on the calendar, it was a reminder to slow down, to think, and to notice the small details that often went unnoticed in the rush of life. Keanu brewed himself a cup of coffee, savoring the smell that filled the room. It was his little morning ritual, a moment to gather his thoughts before the day began. Today was going to be different, though. Today, he had decided, he would share something special with the world. 5 things that people should expect in October. 5 lessons he had learned over the years that might help others enjoy the month as much as he did. He had been thinking about this idea for several days. Sitting alone in the cabin, surrounded by the quiet sounds of nature, he reflected on all the Octobers he had lived through. Some were filled with excitement, others with quiet contemplation, and a few had even brought challenges that tested him in ways he hadn't expected. But through it all he noticed patterns, small truths that seemed to repeat themselves year after year. And he wanted to share them not as advice from someone famous, but as thoughts from one person to many. The first lesson he wanted to share was about change. He looked out the window at a tree in his yard, its leaves starting to fall. Each leaf danced in the wind, spinning and twisting before gently landing on the ground. It was beautiful and quiet, yet it was a reminder that nothing in life stayed the same forever. He thought about the times in his own life when things had changed suddenly. A new film project, a move to a new city, or even simple personal changes like learning a new skill or forming a new friendship. Change was sometimes frightening, he knew, but it was also necessary. It was the thing that made life grow, the thing that opened doors to new experiences. As he sipped his coffee, Keanu remembered one of his earliest experiences in the film industry. He had been working on a movie, preparing for a scene that he had rehearsed for weeks. The director suddenly told him that the scene had to be changed completely. At first he felt frustrated, unsure if he could adapt, but as he learned the new lines and adjusted his performance, he realized that the change made the scene even better. It became one of the most memorable moments in the film. That experience taught him that change was not something to fear. It was something to embrace. It reminded him that life was full of unexpected opportunities, and that sometimes letting go of the old made space for something wonderful to happen. Keanu took a deep breath and stepped outside, letting the cool breeze brush against his face. The sound of leaves crunching under his feet filled the quiet morning. He felt calm, almost meditative. There was a certain rhythm to nature that he loved. The way the wind whispered, the way birds moved from tree to tree, and the way sunlight shifted as the day progressed. Observing these small details made him think about how often people overlooked the beauty in their own lives. Sometimes, he believed, people got so busy chasing big achievements that they forgot to notice small joys. A friendly smile, a warm cup of tea, or the laughter of a child playing nearby. As he walked around the cabin, Keanu imagined telling people that October was a month to slow down and notice these small joys. It was a month to pay attention to the little things that made life meaningful. And yet he knew that it wasn't always easy. People had jobs, responsibilities, and pressures that pulled them in every direction. Still, he hoped that by sharing his 5 lessons, he could inspire at least a few people to pause, breathe, and enjoy the beauty around them. The first thing to expect in October, he thought, was that change was inevitable. Leaves would fall, seasons would shift, and life would move forward. But instead of resisting change, people could learn to flow with it, to see it as an opportunity rather than a loss. He wanted to encourage people to let go of what no longer served them, just as trees let go of their leaves, making room for new growth. After a while, Keanu returned inside and sat by the window, notebook in hand. He began to write down his thoughts not as a formal list, but as reflections he hoped would touch hearts. He wrote about the mornings when the sun felt warm on his skin, the quiet afternoons when he could read a book without interruption, and the evenings when the sky turned orange and pink, painting a picture that seemed almost too perfect to be real. He wrote about the laughter of friends and the calm of solitude, and how both were necessary in life. He thought about the second lesson he wanted to share: kindness. Just as change was a natural part of life, so was the need for people to show compassion and care toward one another. He remembered times when small acts of kindness had made a big difference, both in his own life and in the lives of others. Holding a door open for someone, offering a smile to a stranger, or simply listening without judgment, these were the quiet, unnoticed ways that people could make the world a better place. Keanu remembered one particular morning when he helped an elderly neighbor carry her groceries inside. It was a small act, but the gratitude in her eyes stayed with him for days. It reminded him that even in a busy world, people could take a moment to care for one another. Kindness, he believed, was like sunlight. It warmed everything it touched, even if no one noticed immediately. As he wrote, he could feel his thoughts flowing naturally, each one connecting to the next. He reflected on his own experiences with gratitude and reflection, realizing that these were the third and fourth lessons he wanted to share. October, he thought, was the perfect month for these. With the year slowly coming to an end, it was natural to look back and consider what had happened, the challenges faced, the lessons learned, and the moments of joy that made life worth living. He remembered times when he had felt overwhelmed by life's difficulties. In those moments, taking a pause to reflect, to count his blessings, and to focus on what mattered most had helped him find peace. He believed that everyone could benefit from this simple practice. Reflection, combined with gratitude, could transform even the hardest moments into lessons of hope and resilience. As the morning turned to afternoon, Keanu looked out the window again. The wind had picked up and leaves swirled around in playful patterns. Children were playing down the street, their laughter echoing softly. A dog ran across the yard chasing a ball while its owner called out joyfully. It was a scene full of life, simple yet beautiful, and Keanu felt a sense of calm wash over him. He realized that this, the quiet, unassuming beauty of everyday life, was exactly what he wanted people to notice this October. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple, Keanu had filled several pages with his reflections. He read over his notes, smiling quietly at the thoughts he had captured. He knew that when he shared them with the world, people might see themselves in his words. Perhaps they would be reminded to slow down, to notice change, to be kind, to reflect, and to be grateful. These were not grand lessons, he knew, but they were powerful in their simplicity. As night fell and the first stars began to appear, Keanu poured himself another cup of coffee and stepped back onto the porch. The air had cooled further and he pulled his jacket tighter around him. He breathed deeply, enjoying the crisp scent of autumn leaves mixed with the faint aroma of wood smoke from nearby chimneys. It was a peaceful evening, one that seemed to perfectly capture the essence of October. Keanu smiled to himself, thinking about how this month would unfold. He knew there would be challenges, as there always were, but he also knew there would be moments of joy, discovery, and connection. He felt ready to share his thoughts with the world, confident that even small words could make a difference. And as he sipped the last of his coffee, he made a silent promise. This October, he would help people notice the beauty around them, embrace change, and approach life with kindness and gratitude. The calm before the month, he realized, was not just about waiting for time to pass. It was about preparing the mind and heart for the experiences to come. It was about opening oneself to the lessons of life, about finding peace in the present moment, and about understanding that every day held the potential for something meaningful. And so, with the stars twinkling above and the cool breeze brushing his face, Keanu Reeves quietly awaited October, ready to share his 5 lessons one gentle step at a time. The morning sun rose gently over the quiet town where Keanu Reeves had chosen to spend the early days of October. He opened the curtains, watching the soft glow of light spread across the rooftops and streets. The wind whispered through the trees outside, and a few leaves floated lazily to the ground. There was a rhythm to it, a gentle reminder that life moved constantly, just like the seasons. Keanu knew that October was the perfect month to reflect on the nature of change, and today, he planned to share the first of his 5 lessons with the world. Keanu sipped his coffee and looked out at the small garden behind his cabin. The plants had started their seasonal transformation, some turning red, some yellow, while others still clung stubbornly to green. He thought about how much the simple scene mirrored human life, the cycles of beginnings, endings, and renewals. Change was everywhere, whether one noticed it or not, and yet so many people resisted it, afraid to let go of what was familiar. He recalled one day from his early acting career that perfectly captured the essence of change. He had been rehearsing a scene for a film, one he had memorized and practiced countless times. The director, however, decided at the last moment to rewrite the scene entirely. Keanu felt a wave of panic at first. How could he perform something he had never prepared for? The old lines and gestures he had relied upon were suddenly gone, replaced with a fresh, unfamiliar script. For a moment he wanted to resist, to cling to the safety of the old plan. But then he remembered something his mentor had once told him. Change is not the enemy. It's a guide. Follow it, and it may lead you somewhere better than you imagined. Taking a deep breath, Keanu let go of his frustration and focused on the new scene. He approached it with curiosity instead of fear, allowing himself to adapt naturally. When the cameras rolled, the scene came alive in a way that was unexpected but perfect. The audience responded with laughter and applause, and Keanu realized that embracing change had turned a challenge into an opportunity. He leaned back in his chair and smiled at the memory. Life often presented similar situations, he thought, not just in work but in personal moments too. Relationships evolved, plans shifted, and circumstances could change overnight. And yet each change offered a chance to grow, learn, and discover new paths. Keanu believed that the first step in navigating change was acceptance, acknowledging that life would never stay the same and that trying to force it into a predictable pattern only caused stress. As the day progressed, Keanu decided to take a walk through the nearby park. The streets were lined with tall trees, their branches swaying gently. Children ran past him, laughing and chasing one another, while couples strolled hand in hand. Even the smallest moments revealed change. The young leaves of spring had become autumn leaves, and the playful energy of the children would soon give way to quiet evenings at home. Keanu felt a deep sense of connection with this rhythm of life, recognizing that every moment, no matter how ordinary, was part of a larger pattern of transformation. He passed an elderly man sitting on a bench feeding pigeons. The man's hand shook slightly as he scattered crumbs, but his face carried a peaceful smile. Keanu paused and greeted him warmly. "Beautiful morning," he said. The man nodded. "Yes, it is. October always feels like a reminder that nothing stays the same. Everything changes and yet life continues." Keanu smiled. "Exactly. And I think if we can learn to accept change, we find freedom." The man chuckled softly. "It's not always easy, but you're right. Acceptance makes life lighter." As Keanu continued his walk, he thought about the different kinds of change people faced. Some changes were small and gradual, like a tree losing its leaves over several weeks. Others were sudden and dramatic, like moving to a new city or losing something one loved. Either way, resisting change rarely helped. The key, he realized, was to embrace it, to see it as part of life's natural flow rather than a threat. Back in his cabin, Keanu sat at his desk with a notebook, jotting down his reflections. He wanted people to understand that change wasn't just about external events. It was also about internal growth. For example, learning a new skill, developing patience, or improving one's mindset could be just as transformative as any external shift. Change had a way of revealing strengths people didn't know they had, and it often led to unexpected opportunities. He thought of a friend who had recently changed careers. At first it had been frightening, leaving a familiar job for something uncertain. But with each passing week, the friend discovered talents and passions that had been hidden. The new path was challenging, yes, but it also brought a sense of fulfillment and purpose. Keanu realized that this story reflected a universal truth. Sometimes, the most uncomfortable changes are the ones that bring the greatest rewards. As evening approached, Keanu decided to share his thoughts with a small group of fans online. He set up a camera in his living room, framed by the warm glow of a lamp and the soft shadows of the trees outside. He spoke calmly and sincerely, as if talking to friends sitting across from him. Change is a part of life, he began. It's something we can't avoid, no matter how much we wish we could. Leaves fall from trees, seasons shift, and people grow in ways they sometimes don't expect. And while change can feel uncomfortable, it's also what helps us become stronger, wiser, and more capable of appreciating life. He paused and smiled. I want to encourage everyone this October to notice the changes around you. Don't resist them. Embrace them. Learn from them. And remember that even when something ends, it often makes way for something new, something beautiful you couldn't have imagined before. The response was immediate. Messages from fans poured in, sharing their own stories of change. Some wrote about moving to new cities, starting new jobs, or learning new skills. Others spoke about personal growth, overcoming fears, or adjusting to changes in relationships. Keanu read each message quietly, feeling a deep connection with the people who had taken the time to share their experiences. He realized that the lesson of change was not just something to tell others. It was something to live every day. Watching the messages, reflecting on his own experiences, and observing the world outside his window, he understood that life was a constant series of transformations. And with each transformation, there was an opportunity to grow, to find joy, and to discover something new about oneself. Later that evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and orange and the first stars began to appear, Keanu stepped outside again. The wind had picked up, carrying the crisp scent of autumn leaves. He watched as a few leaves danced in the air, twirling and spinning before landing softly on the ground. It was a simple scene, but it reminded him of everything he had spoken about: change, growth, and the beauty of letting go. He thought about the people he had met, the fans who had shared their stories, and the countless individuals who would experience change in their own lives this October. He wanted them to know that it was okay to feel uncertain, to feel afraid, or even to feel a little lost. Those feelings were natural. What mattered was how one responded, with courage, openness, and a willingness to embrace whatever came next. Keanu walked slowly along the path behind his cabin, crunching the leaves beneath his feet. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, a quiet certainty that change, no matter how challenging, could be beautiful. He imagined the month ahead, filled with small surprises, personal growth, and moments of reflection. He knew that by sharing his thoughts, he could inspire others to notice these changes and to approach them with curiosity rather than fear. Returning inside, he poured a cup of tea and sat by the window once more. The night was calm, and the world outside seemed to hold its breath. He thought about how each day of October would bring something new, a new leaf, a new conversation, a new understanding. And he smiled, knowing that by embracing change, people could find freedom, joy, and unexpected beauty in their everyday lives. As he wrote the final notes in his notebook for the day, he reminded himself that change was a journey, not a single event. Each step, each moment of adaptation was part of a larger story. And just like the trees shedding their leaves, people could let go of what no longer served them, making space for new experiences, new lessons, and new happiness. Keanu Reeves closed his notebook, feeling grateful for the lesson he had revisited today. Change was not something to fear, he realized. It was something to celebrate. And as October unfolded, he looked forward to sharing the rest of his lessons with the world. Lessons about kindness, reflection, gratitude, and hope. But for now he was content, knowing that the first step had been shared, and that perhaps, just perhaps, someone out there would find comfort and inspiration in it. He sat back, sipping his tea, watching the stars twinkle above. The leaves outside continued their gentle dance in the night wind, and Keanu thought with a quiet smile that change, in all its forms, was truly a gift. The morning air in October carried a soft chill, the kind that made people pull their scarves a little tighter and breathe in the crisp freshness with a smile. Keanu Reeves stepped out of his cabin, holding a warm cup of coffee in his hands. The garden outside was sprinkled with colorful leaves, some still clinging to the branches, others drifting slowly to the ground. The scene was calm, peaceful, and full of quiet beauty. As he walked along the small path toward the town, Keanu thought about the second lesson he wanted to share with the world: kindness. It was easy to overlook, he realized. Life often demanded focus on work, responsibilities, or personal challenges, and in the rush of it all, simple acts of kindness could be forgotten. But kindness, he believed, was like a gentle light. It could warm hearts, build connections, and create joy in ways that nothing else could. Keanu remembered an early experience that had stayed with him for years. One chilly autumn morning, long before he became well known, he had been walking down a street in a city far from home. A young boy, no more than 10, struggled to carry a bag of groceries. The boy's arms were small and the bag was heavy, wobbling dangerously with each step. Without thinking, Keanu stepped forward and offered to help. "Here, let me carry that," he said, taking the bag gently. The boy looked up, surprised at first, then smiled brightly. "Thank you," he said. Keanu walked with him a few steps, chatting as they went. By the time they reached the boy's home, the child's eyes shone with happiness. It was a small moment, he realized, but the boy would remember it. Keanu had also remembered it. That simple act of kindness had made a lasting impact on both of them. And it was this memory that inspired him to share kindness with the world every day. As he continued his walk through town, Keanu observed small acts of kindness happening all around him. A woman helped an elderly neighbor carry a basket. A young man held a door open for a stranger, and children shared toys with one another in the park. The sight warmed him, reinforcing the truth he had come to believe. Kindness was not just a choice, it was a gift, one that could ripple outward, touching lives in ways people did not always notice. He stopped near a small coffee shop, watching people interact. Some exchanged polite greetings, others offered compliments, and a few shared quiet smiles. Each action, no matter how minor it seemed, carried meaning. Keanu thought about how many people overlooked these moments, focusing instead on problems or distractions. Yet kindness existed everywhere, quietly shaping the world. Later that afternoon, Keanu went to volunteer at a local community center. He had arranged to help organize food packages for families in need, and the experience reminded him why kindness was so important. Children laughed as they picked out small gifts. Parents expressed gratitude, and volunteers worked together in harmony. The energy of giving and helping created a warmth that was almost tangible, a contrast to the cool air outside. As he helped arrange boxes, Keanu noticed a woman struggling to carry 2 heavy bags. Without hesitation, he offered to help. "Let me take one for you," he said kindly. "Oh, thank you so much," she replied, smiling with relief. The small gesture seemed insignificant, yet it made a difference in her day. And that, Keanu realized, was the essence of kindness. Even the smallest act could matter, sometimes more than anyone could imagine. Walking home that evening, Keanu reflected on the idea that kindness was not limited to grand gestures or public displays. It could be quiet, personal, and even invisible to others. Holding a door, sharing a smile, offering encouragement, or simply listening without judgment. These actions required little effort, but could create enormous impact. He thought about how the world would feel if more people acted with genuine kindness, not because they were expected to, but because they chose to. That night, Keanu sat by the window, writing in his notebook. He wanted to capture the essence of what he had learned about kindness, so that others could understand its power. He wrote about the boy on the street, the woman with the grocery bags, the families at the community center, and the countless small moments he had witnessed throughout his life. Each story, he realized, illustrated the same truth. Kindness was contagious. When one person acted with generosity, it inspired others to do the same. Keanu also thought about the importance of self-kindness. Often people were harsh with themselves, judging their mistakes or dwelling on failures. He believed that being kind to oneself was just as important as showing kindness to others. Taking a moment to rest, offering oneself forgiveness, and celebrating small achievements were all ways to practice self-compassion. After all, a person who is gentle with themselves is better able to extend that gentleness to the world. The following morning, Keanu decided to share his thoughts about kindness with his fans. He set up a small camera in his living room, framed by the soft light of a lamp and the quiet shadows of autumn leaves outside the window. He spoke with calm sincerity, as if he were talking to a close friend. "Kindness is a gift we can give every day," he said. "It doesn't have to be big or noticeable. Even the smallest act, a smile, a kind word, or helping someone in need, can make a difference. And often the person who receives it carries that kindness forward, spreading it to others. This October, I encourage everyone to practice kindness. Not because it's expected, but because it's powerful. It has the ability to change lives. The response was immediate. Messages and emails poured in from people sharing stories of how small acts of kindness had affected them. A student wrote about a teacher who offered encouragement during a difficult exam. A young mother shared how a stranger helped her calm her crying baby in the park. A businessman described how a colleague's supportive words had motivated him during a tough project. Each story, Keanu realized, was a testament to the power of kindness, a reminder that even small actions could create lasting change. That afternoon, he decided to take another walk, this time with a purpose. He carried a bag of small gifts, simple items like cookies, fruit, and handwritten notes, and handed them out to people he met along the way. A delivery worker received a small box of cookies and a smile. A neighbor received a note of encouragement and a small bouquet of flowers. Children giggled as they received colorful apples from his bag. The joy on their faces was a reminder that kindness was not just about what you gave, but about the happiness it created. As he walked back home, the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the town. Keanu paused for a moment, taking in the scene. Families walking together, friends sharing laughter, and strangers exchanging polite greetings. He realized that the world was full of opportunities to be kind, and that even when people felt overwhelmed by challenges, kindness could create moments of light and hope. That evening, Keanu sat by the fireplace reflecting on the day. He thought about the people he had met, the stories he had heard, and the small actions that had made a difference. Kindness, he realized, was not about recognition or reward. It was about connection, understanding, and the willingness to reach out to others without expecting anything in return. He also thought about the future. October was only beginning, and he knew there would be more opportunities to practice kindness, in his daily interactions, in unexpected moments, and in quiet, unnoticed ways. By choosing kindness each day, he believed, people could create a ripple effect that extended far beyond what they could see. Keanu reflected on a lesson from nature that mirrored kindness perfectly. Trees gave shade without expecting thanks. Rivers nourished the land without complaint, and sunlight warmed the earth without judgment. In the same way, humans could give kindness freely, knowing that its impact might be unseen but always significant. As night fell, Keanu wrote one final note in his notebook for the day. Kindness is like autumn sunlight. It may not always be noticed, but it warms everything it touches. This month, and every month, let us share it freely. He closed his notebook, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The lesson of kindness was simple yet profound. It reminded him that while change shaped life, kindness shaped hearts. And when people combined the two, embracing change while acting with compassion, life became not only more manageable, but more meaningful. Keanu poured a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched as the first stars appeared in the night sky. The leaves outside swirled gently in the cool wind, reminding him that even in the midst of change, kindness could anchor people, bring comfort, and inspire hope. He smiled quietly, knowing that the first two lessons of October, change and kindness, had been shared with the world. And as he sipped his tea, he thought about the days ahead, the stories yet to unfold, and the countless opportunities to bring a little light into someone's life. October, he realized, was not just a month of falling leaves. It was a month of gentle reminders that change could be embraced, that kindness could be practiced, and that both could create a world where hearts felt lighter and days felt brighter. With that thought, Keanu closed his eyes, feeling content and ready to face the rest of the month. He knew that in the coming days he would continue to share lessons, insights, and reflections, lessons that could inspire people to see the beauty in the world and in themselves. For now, though, he let the quiet of the night settle around him, a calm reminder that kindness, like all good things. The days in October were growing shorter, and the soft morning light painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. Keanu Reeves woke early, enjoying the peaceful stillness of the town. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of fallen leaves and wet earth. He stepped onto the porch, holding a warm cup of tea, and looked out at the garden where the colors of autumn were slowly deepening. Red, orange, and yellow leaves swirled gently in the breeze, each one reminding him of the quiet beauty of the season. Keanu believed that October was not just a month of change and kindness, it was also a perfect time for reflection and gratitude. Life moved quickly, he knew, and often people forgot to pause, to look back, and to notice all that they had experienced. Reflection allowed them to see the journey they had traveled, to acknowledge their challenges, and to celebrate their achievements. Gratitude, on the other hand, helped them find joy even in small moments and appreciate the blessings in their lives. Together, these lessons created a sense of balance and perspective. He began his morning walk through the park, noticing the children playing, the gentle rustling of leaves, and the soft songs of birds perched on branches. Keanu loved these moments because they allowed him to reflect quietly without interruption. Reflection, he had learned over the years, was not about dwelling on mistakes or regrets. It was about understanding, learning, and recognizing growth. By looking back, he could see how far he had come, and that realization gave him strength for the future. Keanu remembered a time early in his life when he felt lost and uncertain. He had faced challenges that seemed overwhelming, and for a moment he doubted whether he would find his path. But during a quiet evening, he had sat alone, thinking about his experiences and choices. He reflected on both the successes and the failures, and slowly he realized that each event had taught him something valuable. Every mistake had a lesson, every disappointment had a hidden opportunity, and every success had been built on patience and effort. That moment of reflection had changed his perspective. Instead of feeling frustrated or hopeless, he felt empowered. Walking along the path, he thought about how reflection could help others in their daily lives. It didn't require a long time or complicated methods. A few quiet minutes each day, he believed, could help people see patterns in their actions, understand their emotions, and make better choices. Even simple reflection, thinking about the people who supported them, the challenges they overcame, or the small victories of the day, could provide clarity and peace. As he sat on a bench by the pond, Keanu opened his notebook and began writing. He captured the thoughts swirling in his mind, noting the importance of taking time to reflect on life's journey. Reflection is like a mirror for the soul, he wrote. It shows us who we are, where we have been, and what we can become. It is not about regret, but about understanding and growth. October is the perfect month to practice this quietly and thoughtfully. While writing, he noticed a young woman nearby, sitting alone on a bench, looking thoughtful. She held a small journal in her hands, occasionally glancing at the sky as if searching for inspiration. Keanu smiled to himself, realizing that she too was practicing reflection. It was a reminder that this lesson was universal. People everywhere, in small ways, sought understanding and clarity in their lives. After a while, Keanu continued his walk, thinking about the next lesson he wanted to share. Gratitude. Reflection naturally led to gratitude, he realized, because looking back allowed people to see the things they often overlooked. The support of friends, the beauty of nature, the moments of joy that occurred in ordinary life. Gratitude, he believed, was a powerful practice. It shifted focus from what was missing to what was present, from problems to blessings. It gave life a brighter, lighter feeling. He remembered a moment from years ago during a busy film shoot. The schedule had been intense and exhaustion weighed on him. Yet one evening, a coworker had brought him a simple cup of tea and a note that read, "Thank you for your effort. You inspire us." That small gesture filled him with gratitude. It reminded him that appreciation could be expressed in subtle ways, and that noticing even the tiniest kindness could create joy for both giver and receiver. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Keanu visited the local market. The streets were bustling with activity, and vendors displayed their fresh produce, handmade crafts, and colorful autumn decorations. He walked slowly, observing the interactions around him. People exchanged polite greetings, children ran past laughing, and friends paused to enjoy a conversation. Keanu saw countless opportunities for gratitude, noticing the farmer who tended the vegetables, the baker who baked fresh bread, the shopkeeper who offered a warm smile. Each simple interaction, he thought, was a chance to practice appreciation and mindfulness. He stopped at a small stall selling pumpkins and apples. The vendor, a cheerful woman, greeted him warmly. "Good afternoon. Would you like to see our fresh pumpkins?" Keanu smiled. "Thank you. Everything looks wonderful today." He selected a bright orange pumpkin and handed the woman a few coins. "I really appreciate the care you put into these," he said. The vendor's eyes lit up. "Thank you so much. That means a lot." Even in this small exchange, Keanu felt the power of gratitude. A simple expression of appreciation had created a positive connection. a moment of shared joy. He realized that gratitude was not just about thinking internally. It was about expressing it outwardly, letting others know that their efforts and presence were valued. Returning to his cabin in the evening, Keanu reflected on the day. The lessons of reflection and gratitude intertwined beautifully. Reflection allowed him to see life clearly, to understand his own journey and to recognize growth. Gratitude allowed him to find joy, to appreciate the people and moments that made life meaningful. Together, these practices created a sense of balance, peace, and fulfillment. He sat by the fireplace, notebook open, and wrote a message to share with his fans. October is a month for reflection and gratitude, he began. Take time to look back on your experiences to see how far you've come and to understand the lessons you've learned. Notice the people, moments, and things that bring you joy, and express your gratitude. Even small acknowledgments can create happiness and connection. Life is richer when we reflect and give thanks. The response from fans was immediate. Messages arrived from people around the world, sharing stories of reflection and gratitude. A student wrote about noticing the support of teachers and classmates. A young professional shared how taking a moment to appreciate colleagues had improved her day. Parents wrote about expressing gratitude to children for small acts of kindness. Keanu read each message, feeling a deep connection to the shared human experience. He realized that the lessons he had written about were universal, resonating across cultures and ages. As night fell, Keanu stepped outside once more. The sky was clear, filled with stars that twinkled like distant lanterns. The leaves rustled gently in the cool breeze, and the town was quiet except for the occasional sound of a car passing by. He thought about the people he had met, the stories he had heard, and the reflections he had written down. Life, he realized, was a collection of moments, and each moment was an opportunity to reflect and give thanks. He decided to take a short walk along the quiet streets, thinking about how he could practice reflection and gratitude in everyday life, even small actions. Noticing the beauty of a sunset, thanking a neighbor for a kind word, appreciating a friend's support, could create a sense of peace and fulfillment. By focusing on these moments, he believed, people could transform ordinary days into meaningful experiences. Keanu paused near a small fountain in the center of town, watching the water ripple gently. The soft sound was calming, almost meditative. He thought about the journey of the month so far. The lessons of change and kindness had already begun to shape his perspective. Reflection and gratitude, he realized, added depth to those lessons. Change could be approached with understanding, and kindness could be expressed with appreciation. Together, they created a framework for a life that was both mindful and joyful. Returning home, he sat by the window with a warm cup of tea, notebook in hand. He wrote one final thought for the night. Reflection allows us to see clearly. Gratitude allows us to feel fully. Together, they remind us that life is a gift, even in its simplest moments. October is the perfect time to practice both, to notice the journey and to appreciate all that we have. Keanu closed his notebook, feeling a sense of quiet fulfillment. The lessons of reflection and gratitude had deepened his understanding of life and strengthened his connection to the people around him. He felt ready to continue the journey, knowing that the next lesson, hope, would bring its own light and inspiration. As he sipped his tea, he looked out at the autumn leaves swirling in the night breeze. Each leaf, he thought, represented a moment in life, some falling, some floating, all part of a larger journey. And with reflection and gratitude, he realized, people could see the beauty in every moment, appreciate the lessons in every experience, and find joy in even the smallest parts of life. Vibrant, he knew, was not just a month of change, kindness, reflection, and gratitude. It was a month of understanding, a reminder that every day held lessons, every person had value. The days of October were now well underway, and Keanu Reeves felt the crispness of autumn in the air with each breath he took. The sun rose later now, casting long, gentle shadows across the streets and fields of the small town where he stayed. Leaves swirled lazily in the breeze, creating a colorful carpet of red, gold, and brown along the sidewalks. Keanu sipped his morning tea, watching the sunlight glimmer off the leaves and reflecting on the journey of the month so far. He had already shared lessons of change, kindness, reflection, and gratitude. Today he wanted to focus on the final and most important lesson, hope. Hope, he believed, was the quiet light that guided people through dark times. It was not something that always announced itself with fireworks or celebration. Instead, it often came gently. A soft reminder that no matter how difficult the present seemed, there was always the possibility of something better ahead. Keanu had learned this lesson many times in his life, through challenges, through moments of doubt, and through times when the world seemed uncertain. And he wanted to share it with others, especially during October, when reflection and change naturally brought both challenges and opportunities. Keanu decided to take a walk early in the morning, allowing the cool autumn breeze to wake his senses. As he walked, he noticed small things that reminded him of hope: the sun rising above the horizon, the chirping of birds despite the chilly air, and the gentle rustle of leaves dancing in the wind. Even the children playing in the distance, laughing as they chased one another through piles of fallen leaves, carried a sense of hope, a reminder that life continued, full of joy and possibilities. He remembered a moment from his early acting career when hope had made a profound difference. There had been a time when auditions were few and opportunities seemed distant. Rejection letters arrived one after another, and it was easy to feel discouraged. Yet he kept moving forward, trusting that something good would eventually come. That trust, that quiet hope, carried him through. Eventually, the right opportunity arrived, a role that changed his life. Looking back, he realized that it had been hope, the belief in possibility, that had kept him going. As he walked through the park, Keanu noticed a young couple sitting on a bench, holding hands. They seemed deep in conversation, smiles spreading across their faces as they shared plans for the future. Nearby, an elderly man tended to a small garden, planting flowers for the coming season. Even in these simple moments, Keanu saw hope, a belief in tomorrow, in growth, in happiness yet to come. Hope, he thought, was not always loud or obvious. Often it lived in the quiet confidence that life could improve, that people could heal, and that challenges could be overcome. Keanu stopped to sit on a bench by the pond, the water reflecting the changing colors of the trees. He pulled out his notebook and began writing his thoughts. "Hope is the light that guides us through uncertainty," he wrote. "It may be small, almost invisible, but it is powerful. Even when life feels difficult, hope reminds us that tomorrow can be better. It is the belief in possibility, the quiet voice that says, keep going. You are not alone. There is more to come." While writing, he noticed a young boy nearby struggling to fly a small kite. The wind was strong and the kite kept falling. The boy's face was a mixture of frustration and determination. Keanu smiled, recognizing a lesson in the scene. Hope was like that kite. It required effort, patience, and persistence. Sometimes it failed, sometimes it wavered, but with each attempt the boy learned, and eventually, the kite soared higher. Keanu realized that life often worked in the same way. Hope demanded courage, but it rewarded those who persisted. He continued his walk, thinking about the many forms of hope in everyday life. A teacher encouraging a student to try again, a friend offering support to someone in need, or a family planning a future together. All these moments carried hope. It was woven into human experience, often unnoticed but always present. Keanu believed that recognizing hope, even in small moments, could give people the strength to continue when times were difficult. Returning home in the afternoon, Keanu decided to share his reflections with his fans. He set up a camera in his living room, framed by the soft glow of a lamp and the warm colors of autumn outside. Speaking calmly and sincerely, he began, "Hope is something we all need, especially when life feels uncertain or challenging. It may not always be visible, but it is there, quietly guiding us. Hope is the belief that tomorrow can be better, that challenges can be overcome, and that joy is possible even in difficult times. This October, I encourage everyone to notice hope in your daily life, in small moments, in the people around you, and within yourselves." The response was immediate. Fans shared stories of hope from their own lives. A young woman wrote about finding the courage to start a new career. A student spoke of passing a difficult exam after months of struggle, and a man described reconnecting with his family after years of distance. Each story reflected hope, the quiet, persistent belief in better days. Keanu read the messages, feeling deeply connected to the shared human experience and the way hope could inspire action, healing, and resilience. That evening, Keanu took another walk, this time along a small riverside path. The water flowed steadily, reflecting the colors of the sunset. The sky turned from gold to deep orange, then soft pink, and finally to a starry twilight. He observed a few boats floating gently on the river, their movements slow and calm. Even in the quiet, steady rhythm of the water, he saw hope, the reminder that life continued, that challenges could pass, and that peace and joy were possible. Keanu thought about how hope connected with the other lessons he had shared this October. Change, when faced with hope, became an opportunity rather than a threat. Kindness, guided by hope, inspired trust and generosity. Reflection helped people understand where hope was needed most, and gratitude reminded them of the positive aspects of life to hold on to. Hope, he realized, was the thread that tied all the lessons together, creating a framework for a meaningful, fulfilling life. He stopped to watch a family walking along the riverbank, their children laughing as they skipped stones across the water. The parents held hands and encouraged their children with smiles and laughter. Keanu thought about how hope lived in these small moments, often unnoticed but powerful in its effect. Children, he realized, had a natural understanding of hope, their belief in possibilities, their excitement for the future, and their curiosity about the world reminded adults that hope was always present, even if it needed to be remembered. As the night grew darker, Keanu returned to his cabin and sat by the window, reflecting on the month's lessons. Change had taught him resilience. Kindness had shown the power of connection. Reflection had offered clarity. Gratitude had nurtured joy. And now hope illuminated the path forward. He thought about how each lesson built upon the others, creating a guide for navigating life's challenges with awareness and care. He picked up his notebook and wrote one final reflection for the month. Hope is the quiet light that guides us through life. It is not always visible, but it is always present. Even when challenges arise, hope reminds us that we can continue, that joy is possible, and that tomorrow holds new opportunities. This October, may we all embrace hope, for ourselves, for others, and for the world. With hope, every change becomes a chance to grow. Every act of kindness gains deeper meaning. Every reflection offers insight, and every moment of gratitude shines brighter. Keanu closed his notebook and poured himself a warm cup of tea. He sat quietly, watching the stars twinkle above the town, feeling a sense of calm and fulfillment. The lessons of October had come full circle, and he knew that by sharing them he had offered a small light to those willing to notice it. In the days that followed, Keanu continued to practice hope in simple ways. He greeted neighbors with smiles, offered words of encouragement to friends, and spent time reflecting on his own journey. Every moment, he realized, was an opportunity to nurture hope, whether in small actions, thoughtful words, or quiet contemplation. One evening, as he walked along the river once more, Keanu noticed a group of people gathered to watch the sunset. They were quiet, observing the colors of the sky and the gentle movement of the water. Keanu approached and greeted them warmly. Together they shared stories, laughter, and reflections about life. In their company, he felt hope flourish, not just for himself, but for the connection that bound them together as human beings. Keanu understood that hope was not about avoiding difficulties or pretending challenges didn't exist. It was about believing in the possibility of improvement, of growth, and of joy despite the hardships. It was about holding on to the knowledge that even when life felt uncertain, there were moments of light waiting to be discovered. As the final days of October approached, Keanu reflected on how the month had unfolded. Each lesson, change, kindness, reflection, gratitude, and hope had provided guidance for navigating life with awareness and care. He realized that these lessons were not limited to a single month. They were tools to be carried forward every day, every season. On the last night of October, Keanu sat by his window, watching the moon rise over the town. The air was crisp, filled with the smell of autumn leaves and the distant scent of wood smoke.